Okay, so here we are for the third time this evening, attempting to do this thing. I think I've officially given up on the tutorial at this point, and I'm just going to see if the computer will behave long enough that we can have the podcast later. I'm assuming everyone can hear me because it looks like I do have sound on my little sound bar down there. So yeah, thanks everyone for being tolerant during all of this wackadoo, whatever my technology is doing. Well, okay, Corvus, here's the, right, there's sound, yay. Okay, so Corvus, what happened was, first, I had no sound. And I tried for about 15 minutes to get that to work and no dice. So I rebooted everything, and then I had sound. Not from my regular mic, but from one of my camera mics. And then I got the blue screen of death. So this is number 3 time of me being live for the tutorial. I have not actually tutorialed anything at all, and I'm probably not going to, because there's only 10 minutes left of tutorial time. Though I could do a little bit. But yeah, so I should run this for at least 15 or 20 minutes just to make sure that we do not blue screen of death out again. Corvus, did you get the text I sent you with my idea for the graphic for the podcast? And if so, tell me what you think. So our podcast, okay, so I'm going to do I just decided I'm going to do a little bit of tutorial because I want to see if the computer's going to crap out on me again. But that means I need a tool that I don't have over here. A bench pin, but I'll go get it in a minute. So I'll go get that tool in a second. Got it. Well, hi, Sharon. I can do show and tell. I think I'm going to tutorial a bit. I just need to grab a bench pin, so I'll be right back. Yes, so the weather here in Dallas today has been absolutely crap. Heather practically had to swim to work. If she'd had a paddle, she could have just paddled her VW Golf through the streets to work. My hair looked real cute when I left the house today, y'all. It really did. And now it looks a little bit less cute. I got completely drenched from my knees down, and my butt got completely wet, and then I was carrying a bunch of repairs in a plastic grocery sack, which of course the bottom ripped out of it in the middle of the parking lot, so no overhang or anything, and so I'm trying to deal with my 3 bags, my umbrella, and pick all this stuff up off the ground. Oh my god, it was not fun in any way this morning. And then during the beginning of the first time I tried this broadcast, there was more thunder. So there's obviously more stuff rolling in. So if we suddenly go away again, it's either because we got the blue screen of death again, or we lost power, or the wind knocked down the internet cable. Any of these is a possibility. All 3 of these have happened before during streams. Okay, so this is supposed to be part 1 of Sawn and Soldered Pendant, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of it for you. Well, yes, Corvus, that's why I'm having you do the actual graphic instead of me, because you're better at it. But I hope it, communicated my thoughts on that. And Corvus, you can source anything from the button list for those circles, but it has to be something that my mom will approve of, because she's actually going to see this graphic. So no bad words. All right, so okay, so Sawn and Soldered Pendant, which is one of my favorite projects, and I realized I've only done it on stream once. I thought I had repeated it already, but then I discovered I hadn't. I was very excited because I like it a lot. So all right, so so I'm going to do a butterfly, which is actually what I did on stream the last time I did this project. And so this is kind of my idea for what I'm going to do for the layout of my butterfly. So I'm going to cut the butterfly out of sheet metal. I'm going to cut it out of 20. Oh, no, no, no hail. Please, no hail. I mean, at least I have car insurance again, but no hail because my deductible's like $1,000. If it hails on my car at this point, I'm just going to have to drive it in whatever shape it's in. So, so I'm going to cut the body of the butterfly, I almost said bird, butterfly out of 24 gauge sheet bronze, and I'm going to do the wings in 2 parts. So I'm going to do the top section like this, and I'm going to cut around the body as well, which I should have brought the silver pen over here. So I'm going to cut around the body, so I'm going to do that for the, oops, get on camera. I'm going to do that for the top wing section, and then I'm going to do this here for the bottom wing section. And the reason for that is I'm going to overlap them just, wait. Those are all the same. Where's my bottom wing one? Okay, well obviously I just copied the top wing one a million times and did not actually okay, so what I'm actually going to do for the bottom is I'm going to bring them up a little bit. So let me go grab my silver pen. Okay, so while I'm redrawing this, okay, that's the top. Okay, so what I wanted to do for the bottom, no, that's the bottom. Okay, so what I want to do for the top is bring it down like this, because that way I can solder them. On camera. That way I can solder them and they'll overlap. So this is going to be my top line. Yeah. Okay, so this is, so this is the right one. This is the wrong one. There. Okay, I think that's right. Who knows? At this particular, hi Sophia. Yeah, so at this particular moment I'm a little discombobulated because of all the technical difficulties. Okay, so then once I cut that out, and then I'm going to cut the center, the body of the butterfly out, and I have, I think, just enough sterling silver to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do bronze for the wings and then sterling silver for the body, and then I'm going to embellish it with 18 gauge sterling silver wire, so that's all these kind of curly lines. And then I have stones as well, and I know I'm gonna hate myself for some of these tiny stones, but you know, I'm just a masochist sometimes, apparently. But so I've got this pretty opal that's gonna go up here, and then I have a ruby that's gonna be the head of the butterfly, so I'm going to make a tube setting for that, and that's going to go there. Also, auto exposure is not doing it for me tonight, so let us make it a little bit brighter, shall we? Okay, that's a little bit brighter and easier to see now the colors. Okay, so so I'm going to do the ruby there. I've got these 2 pretty rhodolite garnets that are going to go there and here. So they're just really pretty. The rhodolite is the pinker color of garnet. So I've got 2 rhodolite garnets that are going to go there. And then I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the wire on this wing. You can see I kind of scribbled a couple of things, but they have this little bee casting that's going to go on there, and then one more little ruby, I think. So that's kind of my my initial design idea for this. And, you know, words of wisdom from somebody who's done it. Once you get to your design on something like this set, take a photo of it, because you are probably not going to remember, especially since I'm not going to be putting this together until tomorrow. You're not going to remember what you did. And then you're going to have all these parts and you'll be like, yeah, don't know. So what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and I just want to show you one bit of sawing, and then one bit of me making the bezels for these little tiny, for a couple of these little tiny stones. So I'm going to start with, and if you're using tiny stones like that, it's always good to have like a receptacle to put them in, because if you just leave them on your workstation and you're like me, you are going to lose them. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some of my templates, and I'm going to cut out what I want to saw, and I'm not going to, oh, I need to go grab rubber cement. I'm not going to cut it out super precisely. All right, so I'm just going to do one of my upper wing sections, I think. This one. Okay, so upper wing section. So I don't need this whole butterfly, and I'm going to do it in, I'm going to do 4 wing sections. So upper right, upper left, lower right, lower left. So I'm just going to do, and this is why I made a ton of copies of this template, is so that I can do that. So at this point, I'm just going to chop this off, and I'm going to chop this off. So this is basically what I'm going to be sawing here. So I'm going to saw this. This line, I think I'm going to smooth out, just because when I've tried to do that kind of wobbly texture before with the saw, it doesn't work so good. I think I might go in with a hammer and do some of that texture with the hammer. Later. So I'm going to cut here, here, and then I'm going to cut this lower line, and that's going to be my wing. So sawing, and I need all those pieces of paper. So sawing involves some specialized tools, as you all know, because you've seen me do it before. You're going to need a bench pin. Okay, I use a flat one. They also come in a wedge shape, but this is a very important tool when you're sawing because it allows you to brace the metal from both sides and allows you to saw precisely and hopefully break a minimum of saw blades. Now, saw blades are going to break. It's just what happens when you're sawing, but ideally, you know, once again, you don't want to break too many of them because that's not cost effective. I am using 2/0 saw blades. That's 2/0. So the way that saw blades work is that you've got your regular numbers that go in descending order. So 5, let's just start at 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That's descending order of coarseness. And then after you get to 0, then you start the aughts, which is delineated by a /0. So after you've got 0, you've got 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0. So the aughts work like negative numbers. If it's got the /0 after it, actually the bigger the number in front of the slash is, the finer the blade is. If it doesn't have the /0, then the bigger the number is, the coarser the blade is. So, you know, let's not be confusing or anything. All right, I'm going to go grab my rubber cement. So this is one of the best tricks that I ever learned from a metalsmith friend of mine. And what did I do with my sheet metal? I shoved it in there when I decided I was not going to tutorial. There it is. Okay, so I got my sheet of 24 gauge bronze. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some rubber cement and... Ooh, Corvus, what gauge of stainless steel sheets? So I'm going to take my rubber cement and I'm just going to put a thin but thorough coating of rubber cement on the back. And I'm going to stick that down to my metal. Now, I think this piece of metal is like just big enough to get this out of. So I'm going to put it right at the edge. And I'm going to burnish it down. And then I've got my saw blade partially loaded into my saw frame. So when you're loading a saw blades have little teeth, obviously. The teeth are directional, so you want them pointing out away from the handle and you want them pointing down towards the handle. Otherwise it won't cut on the downstroke. When you are loading your saw, you do the bottom and then you need to put tension on the blade or it won't cut. So what you're going to do is you're going to drop the blade into that top receptacle there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this against my workbench. I'm going to lean into it so that I can press the frame, and then I'm going to screw this top screw tightly shut. And you should be able to hear a nice high ping sound when you flick your blade. Okay, so let's move this so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so there's my little butterfly wing. And I'm just going to start sawing, and once again, it's going to be this line here, not that line there, Allison. So let's try and get rid of that line as much as we can. So when you're starting your saw, you're just going to 0.3 millimeters. What gauge is that? Sounds pretty thin. Can you use your metal shears, the ones we sent you? If it's thin enough, these guys should work. Oh, sorry, that was an unintentional flicking off of everyone on the stream. I'm so sorry. These should work. Whoops. That was completely by accident, y'all. There was no ulterior motive there at all. Why would I flick off Corvus? I love her.
It's true.
Okay, so set your saw against your metal. Make sure that you're relaxed. Don't forget to breathe. And you're just going to start your saw by drawing it down your metal. And trust me, the less pressure you use on this, the easier it's going to be. Alright, once you have it started, you're just going to move it up and down and gently guide it along your lines. But what I always tell people, okay, and notice how much my metal was bouncing. I'm going to move it up here so I can get more bracing with my fingers. What I always tell beginners is don't think about pushing your saw blade forward. Just think about it moving up and down and guiding it along your line, and the saw blade will essentially move itself forward, because when you try and push forward, what happens is your saw blade gets stuck in the metal, and then you start doing things like wiggling it to try and get it free, and that's when you break blades. So I'm just continuing to saw along my line. There you go. To cut out my wing. So once again, I'm doing the wings in 4 parts. I'm doing 2 uppers and 2 lowers, and then I'm going to solder them together. So like I said, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to smooth out this line here, and I'm probably going to go back in with a hammer and texture it to give it that kind of ruffled appearance. I think that's going to work better for me than trying to do it with a saw. So that makes this easier because I don't have any curves here. I'm just doing a straight line. Well, a straight curved line, but you know what I mean. If the shears work, see, there we go. All right, see, blade snap. It happens. No big deal. I'm going to go ahead and change that blade out. But Corvus, if the shears cut through the sheet, then I think that would be the thing to use. Because you could use a saw, but... Okay. Let me back up that bus for just a second. Okay, so Corvus asked, what's the best thing for cutting through thin stainless steel sheet? And I did send her a pair of our favorite metal shears, and so that should cut through her sheet just fine. Now, why sometimes does one choose to use a saw and sometimes one chooses to use shears? And there are a couple of reasons that I make those choices. So the shears are much easier to use. They don't require, they don't require any extra tools. They don't require a bench pin. They don't require any of that. And so they're really easy to just pick up and cut your metal with. Secondly, sawing is a skill that needs to be acquired. And so especially when I'm teaching beginners who aren't maybe comfortable with a jeweler's saw, again, the shears are an easy way to go. However, the shears are not nearly as precise as the saw. You cannot make really detailed cuts with your shears. So if I'm looking for something that has a lot of detail to it, the saw is going to be my go-to. All right, so I'm going to continue on sawing out this wing. So this is kind of the biggest pain in the ass when you break a blade, is you've got to like find your way back to where you were, which can be difficult. Okay, so now I'm back where I was, so I'm just going to continue on with my new blade. Now, a lot of people will lubricate their saw blades. I don't, but it can be helpful, once again, especially if you're a beginner at this. So you can just take a little bit of beeswax or olive oil and just put a little bit, for olive oil, just put a little bit on your finger, run it down the blade, because of the directionality of the teeth. If you've got it loaded right, you can go down the blade with your finger and it doesn't hurt. You can actually go up the blade with your finger as well, unless you're pressing really hard. If you're doing beeswax, you'll actually take the block and you'll just run it down the blade. So I've got a curve coming here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mostly try to turn my metal rather than trying to turn my saw, because if you try and turn your saw too sharply, what's going to happen is your blade's going to get twisted. Oh, got it, Corvus. Yeah, then you're going to have to use a saw. There's no way to cut from the interior with the shears. Sorry, I was not on the same wavelength as you on that. The key to going fast with a saw is to use the entirety of the blade, which, if you're a beginner, is sometimes kind of intimidating, but the more of the blade you use, the quicker you will move through the metal, and the quicker you will get your piece sawn out. Now, I have kind of a tricky little cut here at the end, because I want to try and get this little outline of the body. So I put that so close to the edge, it's going to be a little difficult for me to do that. I think I can get it. And then when you get to the end of your cut, your blade may jump, so you just want to make sure your fingers are not in front of the blade at that time. And there. Yes, no? Yes. Alright, so there is... Well, hi, Fenris! How are you? Okay, so this is one of my top wing sections, and the reason we use rubber cement is because it literally will just peel right off and leave no residue. So I'll go back in with the hammer, do the texturing on that. I'll see if I can actually save that for tomorrow so you can see that. And I will show you a couple more things, and then we'll get off so that I can have a quick break before the podcast stream. We are running Fenris a little bit behind on tutorialing because we had massive technical difficulties, like big, huge, giant technical difficulties, including but not limited to utter lack of sound the first time I tried to stream, no matter what I did, and then blue screen of death the second time I tried to scream. I did scream, actually, when the blue screen of death happened. There was an obscenity, for sure.
It was not.
Yeah.
Not a nice word.
It was not a nice word that I screamed. No, it was not.
It did not deserve a nice word.
It did not deserve a nice word. It's true. Okay, so let's talk real quick about these little stones. And I want to introduce you to another one of my favoriteest tools of all time, which is, I was going to touch, like my computer's not a touch screen. What the hell am I doing? At this point, I don't even know. Okay, this is one of my favorite tools of all time. This is, sometimes they call it a bezel forming mandrel, sometimes they call it a jump ring mandrel. It's basically just a really tiny little pointy steel stick. But it's really, really great for forming just little... Okay, bye Sophia, thank you for dropping in! So it's really good for just forming little circles of things, essentially. And, you know, that sounds like something that you might not need a lot, but you actually need it quite a bit in this line of work. And I'm going to be using my tiniest bezel strip that I have, which is it's not 1/8, is it? No, it's like 1/16 smaller than 1/8. It's like 3/16, or no, that's not right. I don't know, whatever. It's small. So, and I'm probably still going to have to file this down for my teeny little rubies. So I'm not gonna torment myself by making a bezel for the teeny little rubies on stream. I'm gonna go ahead and make a bezel for this one. This is the biggest stone that I have. And the cool thing about doing a project like the one that we're doing is I don't need to worry about making a back plate for the bezel because the piece itself will serve as the back plate. So that's nice. That saves me a step. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of the bezel. So this is 30 gauge fine silver bezel strip, which is my favorite to use. And then I'm just going to, and this stuff is very soft. So this stuff you don't have to worry about springing up. But that being said, it's always easier to make it bigger than smaller. So I'm just going to kind of guesstimate where on my mandrel I think I should be for this stone. And I'm going to hold it. And I'm just going to bend it around my mandrel. And it bends really easily around the mandrel. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just overlap it so that I have just this little circular coil bit. And then I'm going to pop that over my stone. Like so. And then I'm going to grab a marker or a scribe, or in this case I'm just going to use my mandrel as a scribe. And so obviously I don't want this overlapping in the final product, so I'm just going to scribe a line so that I know where to cut off the excess. And ideally I want to do that while it's on my stone, because as soon as I pull it off my stone, there's a chance that my measurement might get off. So I'm just going to kind of semi-awkwardly hold that, and I'm sorry I can't see it on camera, so I'm going to have to just do it here. So all I did was I just scribed a little line there. You can probably see it. That's where I'm going to cut. And then I'm going to solder this together tomorrow. Theoretically, I'm going to have to do the same thing for these eeny beeny tiny little rubies. And I like I said, I think I'm going to be hating my life. I need to do one. The other one I'm going to do in a tube setting, which I will show you how to cut tubing tomorrow night. Let's see. And then the last thing is bending the little wire bits to go with my design here. So I think that's probably something that you guys can handle on your own, but I'll just do this one real quick to show you how it goes. So I've got some 18 gauge sterling silver wire here, and I'm going to cut a piece that's going to be about that size. I'm going to say I can do that probably with 3 inches of wire, even a little bit less. And when I'm doing something like this and I'm not completely sure of, so there are 2 ways that you can do something like this. You can start in the middle and then make your shapes on either side, or you can start at one end and progress to the end of the shape. That's what I'm going to do because I'm pretty sure I've got too much wire here. So I'm going to start with this kind of open spiral. So I'm just going to take my round nose, grab my wire in my round nose, and just sort of bend it around loosely, like so. And all the way around. So that's going to be that right there. And then I'm going to take a note of where I want to bend it, which is going to be about here. So I can just grab that and bend it. So like that. And then I'm just going to curve it around. And so I made this spiral a little bit bigger than my drawing. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this around and just make that spiral a little bit smaller. So to do a gentle curve like that, you can actually just use your fingers to sort of swing the wire around. There we go. And then I'm just going to cut right about here and then roll up that end. So we're just going to take her round nose. I'm just going to roll that guy in. And there we go. So it's a little big, so I'm going to need to just go ahead and tighten up this spiral a bit, because as you can see, it's overhanging the wing, which we don't want. So I'm just going to take that and just bring it in a bit more tightly. Like so. And there we go. Much better. All right, and I'm going to have to solder this on, so I want it to be flat. Hi, Silver. And right now it is not flat. If I put it on my block, it does not lie flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take a rawhide mallet, or in this case, a nylon mallet, because I seem to have misplaced all my rawhide mallets somehow. And I'm just going to pound that flat. Now, you could use a hammer if you wanted to actually flatten this, and by flatten it, I mean change the profile of the wire from round to flat. I don't want to change the profile of the wire in this case. I just want to take the shape, which was off, and I want to flatten out the shape without flattening the wire. So that's why I'm using the nylon. So there we go. That's my shape. So we'll go over tubing cutting tomorrow, tube setting, and solder everything together. Oh, that means tomorrow night's probably going to be a longish tutorial, so, you know, buckle up. And thank you all so much for sticking with me during all of my technical difficulties this evening. So it is 7:23. Heather and I will be back in about 10 minutes with the Stage Fright podcast. Yes, these are going to be all sorts of wild and wacky stories from our time in the theater of things that happened to us. Or around us, because not all of these things happened to me, but I was peripheral to all of them. If you want to jump on the Discord podcast channel in the next 10 minutes and throw up any questions that you might have that you want Heather and I to answer, we would be more than happy to answer those for you on the podcast tonight. So feel free to do that in the next 10 minutes. I'm going to go feed my rumbly stomach. And Heather and I will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, hopefully with lights and sound and everything in about 10 minutes for the Stage Fright podcast. All right, everyone, see you in a few. Bye. Except I lost my mouse and I can't mute myself. Okay, bye, y'all.